Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, your host, and today I'm here with Carly Pepin, and I am so excited to have her on because she talks about human behavior, and I am fascinated with that. And so, Carly, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little more about yourself?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for now officially about 13 years, which is inspiring. And I started with my own challenges and the struggles that I was going through, and I was really having a hard time with traditional methods getting to the other side. So it really sent me on just this rabbit hole of trying to figure out why we do what we do, why we feel the way we feel. And ever since then, it's just been learning, applying, refining, and yeah, to myself and others. So it's been quite an inspiring journey.
So, who do you typically work with?
Mm. So I work with entrepreneurs and business owners, and then we'll focus on not just what's going on with them in their personal life, but also the professional dynamics as well. So depending on who I'm working with, I might just be working with them on personal development, or sometimes we're also going in and doing some business to business stuff as well. Yeah.
And so, people usually like they go into business because they have this passion for something, they want to do something, they want to make a difference, and they feel like working for someone else, they want to be able to have their own hours, or there's a myriad of different things reasons why. But what are some of the issues you find with people who are having a hard time either getting started or they're getting stuck being able to move to the next level?
Yeah, and so it's just a normal part of business. That's first thing. So let's get that out of your head that you're broken or something's damaged or wrong. It's very normal to get stuck in our business, and we don't often have this insight and the tools beforehand to understand, how to plan for the future, right? So usually when individuals are starting a business, they'll just focus on what I'm going to do for this month, right? What I'm going to do for this next couple months, right? Like what would be cool for the year. But the reality is that the reason why we get stuck is because we'll sometimes fall behind, right? We'll fall behind in whatever's going on in the industry, which means we have not been paying attention. We didn't innovate, and then we're just lost. We fall behind in the sense where we're also not paying attention to, what it actually takes to create long-term clients, repeats, referrals, but then realizing as well, like that pool consistently has to be refilled over and over again. Like having a sustainable long-term business takes a lot of time, energy, work, and planning. And I would say that a lot of individuals, when they're talking about building a business or sharing that with you online, they really don't share all the strategic planning that goes on. And so people will get really stuck and bogged down and feel really defeated when I'll sometimes go in and I'm like, well, what's your actual plan? I
Mhm.
know you're stressed out, but like, what's the plan? Like, let's dive into the plan so we can see where the gaps are. And it's like, well, I don't really have a plan. I'm like, well, that's why you're stressed. Like, how are you going to get there if you don't know where you're going, right? And it's really cool because I like to start with individuals on just having like a big goal and really just push, like, what would you love your business to look like in 10 years or even 25 years? And then work backwards from that, because that'll give you more than enough to do today, a really cool place to go, and it'll give you the actual investment of time that it really truly takes to build a business. It's a lot. Yeah,
Mhm.
and on the way, we do all the fun mindset work just to help us to overcome our own limited perceptions, our beliefs as we kind of get bogged down and I can't do this, I can't do that. How am I going to do this, right? And so that's the other part of focusing on the inside. So not just the outside, but also the inside.
And you on your website you have like a master class, right? That I mean, there's a lot of things that you have, but you talk about imposter syndrome, and you have a. How do you recommend people get outside of their head?
Yeah, so definitely imposter syndrome is going to float in and out in your life. And we want to overcome it kind of at the varying stages, right? So if you think of yourself as a kid, when you were a kid and you rode your bike for the first time, it was like the most intense experience ever. Probably compared yourself to your mom or your dad or whoever was amazing and was teaching you. And then when you got older, if you ride a bike today, like it's not even an issue, right? It's not an issue. Why? Because that part of the imposter syndrome you've overcome because you've actually moved to the next stage and the next level. And so, first, it's just to know that at each stage that you're at, you're going to have imposter syndrome in different forms. So, we start with our parents, we start with the people who are closest with us, we start with our teachers. And then next, it kind of moves into our colleagues and other business owners, right? Other entrepreneurs and our friends, other family members that we're starting to create and usually still our original family. And what we want to do is we want to catch the comparisons. And how we do that is sometimes it'll be very obvious, but the ones that aren't obvious are the really important ones as well, where first you'll listen to your language. So if you say things like, I have to do this, I need to do this, I'm supposed to, I've got to, ought to, right? The shoulds, as we call them. That's actually not coming from you. That's coming from a someone else, an outside authority, that imposter syndrome. And I love to ask the question, according to who? Because there'll be one individual that's the top on your mind that you've perceived. It's like, I have to do this, according to who? Oh my gosh, it's my mom. Oh my gosh, it's my dad. Oh my gosh, it's my friend who's doing so much better in business than I am, right? And so that's the have to and the should that's coming in. And that's where the imposter syndrome originates, from that specific comparison. And then what we go in to do to actually transform that is you want to see, you spot it, you got it. Anything, by the way, not just the things that you love, but also the things that challenge you. You spot it, you got it. So I know sometimes it's harder for people to own that stuff. Everyone likes this part. So basically, you go in and you look at the thing that you admire in someone else and you work to find it within yourself and in your own form. And I like to use athletes as an example because I'm not an athlete, right? And so it's like, how would I have the same thing as an athlete inside me? And so when I've done even this work on myself, like if I go and I look at an athlete, right, they're dedicated to their end goals, right? Like I see that, like they have one specific goal, they're highly dedicated to it. And that's part of, them winning the game in this way, right? And so for me, if I admire that, it's like, well, where am I dedicated to specific goals? I can immediately see that, right? If I admire that every day they wake up and they focus on their fitness, their body, just to make sure like they're in the best tip top shape to be able to do what they do. Well, where do I have that? What am I doing every single day where I'm focusing to make sure I'm in the best shape, to do what I do, right? And so it's not that I'm an athlete. I just have these parts and these qualities that I'm admiring. And when imposter syndrome comes in, I've negated that. I've disowned that. And so that's why we want to do this little process where it's like, I should do this according to who? This individual. Where do I have that very thing that gave me that should, right? And then all of a sudden the imposter syndrome dissipates and you realize the seer, the seeing, and the seen are the same and nothing's missing inside you. And that's it. You just get to move forward from there until you get your next imposter, your next level.
That is so, I could give you so many examples of that, but I remember that I had just been promoted from an instructor to the dean. And I remember like driving to the place on my way to work. And I'm like, why is anybody ever going to even listen to me? Like, I have been a teacher. I'm not a director. I'm not a manager. And like all these thoughts started hitting me. And I'm like, wait a second. Yes, I know. Like, I have been preparing for this since I started teaching. I can totally do this. And then obviously when I went from dean to director, and I remember having a conversation just recently with somebody close to me that he went from being this grunt, as he called himself, to now he's a manager and like number 2 in the store. And he was, I think it had been like a month. And he's like, I'm not going to be able to keep my job. My boss says I'm horrible, da, 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 da. And I said, well, what have you done to show that you're at that level? I said, I think that what's going on in your head is exactly that, the imposter syndrome. You don't think you're worthy to have this position. And because of that, you're going to have this self-fulfilling prophecy if you don't try to figure it out. And he's like, oh my gosh, I never even thought about that. And I think that that is probably the biggest issue with a lot of people, is to go from one step to the next step. I also call it the Peter principle, because you're always wondering, are you promoted to your level of incompetence? And if you are, then what are you going to do to become competent?
That's beautifully said. Yeah, I use the Peter principle a lot too.
Thank you. Nobody talks about
like,
it.
it is what it is. Like, yeah, we go to our next level, and it's also, why would you not want to be incompetent? I mean, it's crazy to think we're not going to be incompetent at Wells, and that gives us an opportunity to learn and grow. That's like half the fun, is going to the next level of incompetence, and like this is where we get to challenge ourselves and feel a little uncomfortable and build that confidence and self-esteem. Yeah.
Well, because you should always be growing, because if you're not growing, you're getting weaker. I mean, perfect example, I just turned 50 this year, and like I used to be in such good shape. Like I had abs, I had all these things, and now I look at myself and I'm like, oh. If you're not working towards it and continually staying in shape, then you're going to become flabby. It's just going to happen. And so I think that that's the same thing with our mind. If you're not continually executing, if you're not continually using it, then you're going to lose it. And so I think let's switch gears for a second. And you talk about life purpose. And what is your perspective on life purpose versus what other people think about it?
Yeah. So when I hear life purpose, a lot of people talk about what you're passionate about and like to find it, right? Like we're going to find what you're passionate about. You can find that. And then that will be the thing that like is your life purpose. And that's it. And it's the one thing, and it's the all thing you dedicate to, right? So the interesting thing is, for one, if you've ever looked at the etymology of the word passion, it's actually to suffer,
Mhm.
right? So I don't like to use the word passion. I like to use the word inspiration and fulfillment. I don't want to have passion and suffering. And that's the thing, is like a passion is an overrated form of excitement. It's like almost a manic energy. And we do suffer in that manic energy. Sometimes we think we want to be like happy, happy, happy. But if you go to these moments where you have this high level of happiness, in a sense, you'll notice that you feel a bit manic and you feel off balance. And so what I'm telling you is more inspiration and fulfillment. And the other thing that's really important, you do not have to find it. It's not missing. You don't have to create it. It exists within you all day, every day. And that's the thing, like we are purpose driven human beings. So if someone's telling you like your purpose is missing, they're full of it and they don't understand what that means. Like you wouldn't be around if you didn't have one, right? And so this is where we want to pay attention to what our life is demonstrating on a daily basis. And it's not just going to be one thing, it's probably going to be 3 to 5 things that you're hyper focused on. One of them will take the center stage, right? And that's the thing that you're going to spend the most time and energy on. But there's going to be 2 to 4 things after that that you genuinely are also invested like a lot of time and energy in. And then you just fill your day with those things.
Mhm.
It's like, how do you coordinate your day all day, every day to be doing the things that you love? And what do those things look like? Because you will feel more fulfilled, you will feel more inspired, and the challenges that you're facing are going to be ones that you're excited to like face, right? So if I have a rough day, because life is life and you're going to have a rough day from time to time, if it's filled with things and challenges that are inspiring to me, I'm going to get up and do it anyways. I know that. I know that. And I know that there's certain things that you guys can think of in your life right now that no matter what, you wake up and do. No ifs, ands, or buts. No matter what's happening, no matter what's going on, there's certain things that indicate are so meaningful to you that you're going to do no matter what. Even if it's hard, even if the day is bad, even if the whole world is falling apart, there are certain, again, about 3 to 5 things that no matter what, you're going to invest your time in. That's your life purpose. Those are the things that are meaningful and purposeful to you. And so all I'm saying is like, just invest more time and energy in it. Because imagine if your whole day was filled with something like that. And this is that dynamic too. It's like, how do we create businesses around that? How do we give ourselves permission to do the things that we love? Well, if I love teaching, right? Coaching is obviously like a really great route for me to go. Like obviously. Um, there are other ways to teach though. I've had friends who are college professors and they love that. One of my friends, he's an excellent professor and he is a college professor, loves his job, also built a business on like the side as well, just to have the income he wants and still be a college professor, right? And so it's like you can teach and do it in the way any way you want to. I have another client, he loves coaching, by the way. And what he does is he works in a big business and coaches sales teams on a regular basis. Like that's his thing, right? So he doesn't want to do it solo. He wants to do it there. And it's like, all right, well, what's your way? Like, what do you love? And what's the best way for you to implement it that's the most inspiring to you? And that's what we really want to focus on. Because when you do that every day, you don't feel elated or overly joyous, right? You actually just feel grateful and fulfilled and inspired. And it's a different feeling because it's this balanced state where you're centered and you're focused and you're being and you really get to experience your life and who you are. It's really quite amazing. So yeah, nothing's missing inside you. Anyone who tells you your purpose is lost, no, you just disconnected from it mentally, but you can't get rid of it. It's consistently 100% there.
Actually gonna play this episode for my kids because I 100% believe we're all put on this earth for a reason. And when we leave this earth is when we finish our purpose, right? So passion we obviously had some issues and interference. So, but I love that you talk about passion and you talk about getting rid of that word because I always say that I want the moms to find their passion, their purpose, and their joy. And I'm not going to say passion anymore. It's inspiration
Mhm.
because I really do think that it's things that you love to do. That is something how you look at it. Because like with my kids, doesn't matter how sick I've been the last several months, I am going to get out of bed and make sure they're into school, that make sure they have food, make sure that, all anything to deal with them. So I love that you're inspired to do things. That's way better.
Yeah.
So what else do you help business owners like how to get unstuck or with the behavioral stuff? What else do you do?
Yeah, so with the behavior dynamic, it's really understanding like why they're stuck, right? So why they're stuck, what's going on, and sometimes it's shame and sometimes it's pride. Sometimes it's things that we think we're lacking, and sometimes it's things that, when we puff ourselves up too much. I was just speaking with an individual client recently, and we were finding out, I was like, well, let's see what was going on with you when your business dropped, right? We're like, let's find out when the business dropped, when things shift, what was actually happening. And he's like, well, I just had raised my prices. And he goes, and I was having a hard time making sales. And I was like, okay, well, how much did you raise your prices? And he goes, I doubled my rates. And I was like, okay. And I said, he sees a little bit much, a little fast. And he lost all his clients and he wasn't able to sell at the new rate. And I was like, why did you do that? And he goes, I could see that I was a little infatuated, elated, that I was a little prideful around what I was doing. And so I did too much too soon. He goes, I can see that. And I was like, okay, cool. So sometimes even those stuck moments, and I use this as an example, is when we get too proud of ourselves, when we get too proud of what we're doing, and we get too proud of who we are. I also remember another individual I worked with, they have a sales call, and afterwards they were so frustrated by the sales call and how it went and being rejected that they just lost again. Like I didn't even want to get into what happened, but they lost it. And when we were on the phone, I was like, okay, what is going on? Like, why did you take this personally, right? And then they kind of get into this whole explanation, and I'm like, what I'm hearing right now is that this sales call was about you. That's what I'm hearing, but sales calls aren't about you. Sales calls are about you introducing a product or service to the individual that who potentially will be on the receiving end of that product and service. So I was like, all right, let's work on whatever part of you felt it like needed to be almost nurtured, or like it needed that boost. Like, where are you feeling shame or something that like this is the thing that you needed? And if you didn't get it, it's like there's something innately wrong with me. And it's like, no, no, no. Let's find that out. And we kind of dove in and got to uncover some of the imposter syndrome that came in. And it was the comparison to someone else and them not feeling worthy. And so as a result of that not feeling worthy, they blew up in a sales call that didn't make them feel worthy. And we're like, let's clear this. You got this. Um, and it's kind of funny because it's like we think about these businesses in a sense, and they are us to a certain degree. Like we want to be fulfilled and inspiring, but they're also not us, and they don't function without our customers and clients. So when we think about when we're stuck, it's like, well, what end are we stuck on? Are we stuck on the end of I'm not moving forward because I don't believe in myself? Do I have fears? Am I having reservations? Even one client, he had a hard time moving forward just because he was worried about his partner, and like it was going to take up so much time to build his business simultaneously. He worried about the relationship with his partner. That was one of his fears. It's like, okay, let's work on that. Or is it something where you're getting feedback from customers and clients? Are they not buying the product and service? Are they not actually engaged in it? And it's like, well, then also it's like, how have you even been that human behavior specialist yourself and been like, well, why aren't they doing that? Like, what's actually going on? Am I giving them something they want? Is this about me? Is this about them? Like, have I done enough research on these people, these individuals? And so it's also understanding like you kind of are a human behavior specialist in a business. You can't not be. I don't care
Mhm.
how big the business is. Like you could be Amazon, but Amazon, if they don't understand their customers and their needs and understand our own behaviors, we're gonna go to someone else who's trying to compete with them, right? They're very good at that though. We can see that. So
And I really do think, I mean, it is important to remember that when you're serving people, the importance of making sure that you know your audience. Like, for example, I took my son to the doctor. He's getting ready to go do humanitarian work for 2 years, and it's with our church. And so we walk in, or the doctor walks in. He's like, "Oh, okay," because he has to have this physical to sign off. And the doctor's like, "Well, is there anything I can do to talk you out of it?" excuse me? Like, this is something that my son has been wanting to do for years. And just because he doesn't agree with it, like, wow, that's completely unprofessional. And it doesn't make me want to go back to this guy, right? And so knowing our audience and knowing how to serve them, I think is so important. And knowing what they want and do they see the value in it? Like, I'm sorry, I can go to many different primary care physicians. And so if I don't feel like I'm getting value from this person, obviously I'll go somewhere else. And this is the same thing with coaching. If you have a product that nobody else can give and you believe in your product, people are going to come. But if you don't, and if you don't believe in it, if you don't think it's worth what you're charging, they're not going to think that either.
No, they're not. That's a funny example with your son. It's interesting because it's even in that dynamic, like, and this is where as providers, it is about the client. Like it genuinely is. And maybe that service provider knew something about it that is important for you and your son to know, but because of the way that they're approaching it, you're like, I'm done. I'm out of here. As opposed to being like, wow, crazy journey. Can't believe you're doing that. Did you guys know that this also happens out here? I don't know if you knew that, but like make sure you're prepared for that. And then it like puts the ball in your court. You're like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, let's go check. Let's go take care of it.
Right.
Right? And then all of a sudden, if it was bad enough, you're like, maybe you shouldn't go. And it's like, yeah, like put the ball in the other person's court, pay attention to your clients, pay attention to your audience. You can actually be truthful with them and share tough information and not lose them. Yeah, but when we go demanding people and like telling them how to live their life, like I don't even like that. Like I'm out of here. So
Well, he's kind of on a three strikes you're out policy. Today was the third. We won't go there, but yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay, so time is short, but I wanted to ask you, like, you clearly you've been doing this for a long time, right? You said 13 years. And so go back to that person when you first got started. And what is your advice to people who want to do coaching, who want to do, like, they don't know how to get started, they don't know how to find clients. What is your advice?
Yeah, so the first thing is start with your current network, start with the people start with your friends, reach out to those individuals, let people know what you're doing, let people know what you're up to. I used to do like test runs of things, and when I did test runs, I would reach out to my friends and say, I want to try this new like group event and workshop. Like, can you come? Do you want to be a participant? Like, this is what we're gonna do. This is what I want to try. I have no idea how it's gonna go. Do you just want to come, right? And then I would have friends come and they would love it. And it would just be a group of friends. I wouldn't even charge them. And I'd be like, do you care? Would you give me a testimonial? And then they give me a testimonial, right? And then if someone else has a problem, like then all of a sudden they're like, oh, you gotta talk to Carly. She's doing this thing and I tried it, right? And so it's really getting out to first, I suggest your current network because they've already had an experience with you. Chances are, if you're going into coaching, and you're not interested in helping people grow and you're just good at marketing, like do something else. Trust me on that one. Like be good at marketing and go sell like washing machines and stuff like that. Like it's smarter because I can't tell you how many times where I get on a call with someone and they're like, yeah, last time like they were a great marketer, but they were an awful coach. And I'm like, there are better businesses that you guys can do. But if you already love coaching, the reason why I say go to your current network is because they already have an experience of you doing it. Your friends have an experience of you doing it. Your family members have an experience, your colleagues. We had one client, he was really fun. He came to our workshops and when he would come, he stayed in the business that he's in, but he loved personal development so much. He kind of built a mini division within a huge corporation. Like we're talking a massive corporation. And he built a mini personal development division within it where there's speakers and events and they have like now personal development events on a regular basis, right? But it was him going with the current network that he knows. And now he could also, if he ever wanted to do that again, I guarantee you he could go into other companies and build divisions for them because he's done it. So when I say this man can go be a coach now, this man can go be a coach because he loves it so much. He's been implementing it even in a job. And so that's why it's like really important. Check with your current network and go meet people. Like there's 100 people online. I get reach outs all the time online. It's very rare that it's actually going to occur that way. Now, most of the time, if I'm hiring someone, it's usually through referrals or something. Yeah, referrals, friends, something like that. I reach out to my network to find individuals that I would love to work with. It's very rare that I'm just sort of finding someone online. It happens from time to time, but very rare. And so that's why it's really important to also go out and go to events, create little workshops at your, local stores, shops, yoga studios, whatever it actually is that you're aligned with, right? And find those things and meet people, right? Start meeting people. And then it starts to have a snowball effect. And this is why I say, don't just be a good marketer, be a great coach, because once you're a great coach, that's when the repeats and referrals come. That is where your business will thrive. Because if you're just going out and trying to get clients and you get a package and it doesn't go so well and you don't improve and every time it's the same, it's not gonna do well. It really isn't gonna do well. But if you provide quality results, you're the top of their mind when they have the next problem, and you're the top of their mind when the loved ones that they're with or even friends are having problems. I've had many clients who pay for sessions for friends and family members as a gift just because they're like, this works. And I know you can't invest in it right now, but let me get this for you as a gift. Right. So it's like, really do your marketing and focus on results. Focus on results. Focus on results.
Okay, so if somebody wants to work with you, how do they find you?
Yeah, so they can come to my website, which is carlypepin.com. Yeah, and they can find me there, connect with me directly, or all the social media channels.
I love that. Well, Carly, thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And mompreneurs, I hope that you took some golden nuggets, that believe in yourself, find your inspiration, and just start. Take the first step and reach out to Carly because she is very experienced in what she's doing. And if you're stuck, definitely she's somebody who can help you out. So go out and make it a great day. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Charisse Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Charisse Walker.